Sal Berry and Tim Parish. This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry. Along with me is Tim Parish, and this week we are going to talk about EBUG sensation David Ayres, and we are also going to have the debut of the Puck Junk Listener Mailbag. Tim, what's up?
Not a whole lot. What's up with you?
Been sick this week, so I sound
a little
I sound a little wussier than usual right now. I sound like a wussy with a cold instead of just a wuss. But I'm gonna battle through it because I'm so excited. Every time an EBUG gets an NHL jersey, an Angel gets its wings. No, I don't know. Every time an emergency backup goaltender gets to be in a game, I just feel a little bit happier about things in general. It's always such a nice story. But then I'm also excited that we got some really fun, interesting questions because, I love talking about hockey cards and I love talking about like current events, but I'm a teacher. You used to be a teacher. When a student asks a question, sometimes it's fun to kind of go off onto that tangent and talk about that thing instead of just like lecture. Like, I will now explain to you the pros and cons of the 86-87 OPG set. Oh boy, right? As opposed to getting a fun question, which we got a bunch of.
Well, it's definitely easy to do too when you're like us and we like to hear ourselves talk and we ramble on and on and on.
I like to hear you talk. You got a nice voice, if I had your voice, I'd be set. I'd be set. Like
I wish I felt the same. I feel like my voice is high pitched and whiny.
No, so. Dude, have you heard my voice?
Yeah, I'm listening to it right now.
Yeah, I don't make me do a Twitter poll to prove you right here. Speaking of which, I should look at this Twitter poll that I just put up. It should be closing right about now. Where are you, Twitter? Okay. So I did a little Twitter poll and I said, I said, which one is the better insult? Your hockey team's so bad that they couldn't score on an accountant, or your hockey team's so bad they lost to a Zamboni driver. And the second one, your hockey team's so bad that they lost to a Zamboni driver, won the vote. It got 74.2% of the vote. Whereas your hockey team's so bad that they couldn't score on an accountant got 25.8% of the vote. This is totally scientific, by the way, because it's Twitter. It's a Twitter poll. So, of course, I'm referring to the first one. I'm referring to Scott Foster, who was the accountant who stepped in between the pipes for the Chicago Blackhawks during the end of the 17-18 season, played 14 minutes, turned away 7 shots. Didn't get credited with the win, but he stopped every shot he faced. So the Winnipeg Jets could not score on that accountant. Or the other one, your hockey team's so bad that they lost to a Zamboni driver. Now we're talking to about David Ayres, who was the facilities manager, or is the facilities manager for the Toronto Marlies, also practice goalie for the Marlies and the Maple Leafs. And he played for the Carolina Hurricanes this past Saturday night, and he stopped 8 out of 10 shots that he faced. So he didn't stop. It wasn't that they couldn't score on the Zamboni driver, but he was credited with the win. So actually, the Maple Leafs lost the game to him. He gets the win. He gets the W. He is the first EBUG to get a win in NHL history.
Yeah, you could have had a third choice to that poll too.
Oh,
like your team is so bad that they're out of the playoffs in mid-February, like Detroit. But that's another story entirely. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because he got in there and everybody was high-fiving him and great, yeah, good times, like have some fun out there. And the first 2 shots he let in?
2 shots.
Yeah, 2 shots on goal and two goals, and it's like you're thinking, oh boy. So what's the over under on 6 or 7 at this point?
And I was now going back and listening to him talk about that first shot. he said that he thought Tavares was going to go high with his shot because he's faced Tavares before in practice because he sometimes practices with the Maple Leafs. He thought Tavares was going to go high, so he hesitated on going down, and Tavares shot it low, and he went down a split second too late, which is all it takes. And so that was an honest mistake. And he wasn't like making excuses for himself. I mean, he's like, I got beat. He goes, but I thought he was going to go high. He went low. And by the time I caught onto that, I was too late. And the other one was a backdoor where the guy just basically like was on the back door, got the rebound, put it in. Oh, got the rebound, but it was the defenseman for the Hurricanes tried to blocked the shot, got a piece of it. It ended up right in front of the Maple Leaf, who just whacked it in a wide open side of the net. And then Ayers said to his teammates, his teammates said to him, don't worry, we don't care if you allow 10 goals, just enjoy the moment, have fun, And he said, just let me see the puck and I think I'll be okay. And so then they let him see those shots. And then, they weren't trying to block the shots. They weren't inadvertently screening him. And then he was fine. He made a save at the end of the second period, and then he stopped everything he faced in the third period.
Yeah, that second goal would have beat most of the goaltenders in the league.
Yeah.
So that wasn't. I don't fault him. I don't fault him at all for that.
And
but,
John Tavares has beat most of the goaltenders in the league anyway. So the first goal, I mean.
But yeah, the fact that he was, in the locker room and just kind of like, all right, I've shaken the rust off, shaking the nerves off. Mm-hmm. I'm good. And he went out there and didn't let another one past him after that. It was definitely interesting. And I'll tell you what, it makes for a good story. It makes for a very compelling story that draws people that wouldn't normally pay attention to hockey in because it becomes a talking point. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've seen that the last few days because he's made his rounds from talk show to talk show to talk show. He's been on tons of morning shows, on the radio, on TV. I mean, he did Colbert. He was on the Today Show where they brought his mom out and everybody was crying and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, this guy's like the feel-good story of the year, especially when you go back and look at the history. I mean, he had a
kidney transplant, 2004.
Right. And it's like, okay, here's a guy who was in a dire situation at some point, has the surgery, comes back, is living his life, doing his thing, more or less. He's like every beer league hockey player's dream because he actually got into a game. And I mean, it's a great story. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's just one of those things.
I got to tell you, because I like watching Hockey Night in Canada, and I'm always happy when I get to see a game like this live, right? Like when I get to see a game like this as it happens, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like I remember watching the game when John Tortorella stormed the Calgary Flames locker room. I mean, that was hilarious and whatnot. I mean, I love it when I get to see these games that just like aren't just the Maple Leafs lost 3-2 or won 3-2, but when just like this other element happens, right? Or the time in 91 when the Blues and the Blackhawks had that like huge brawl at center ice. They call it the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. Or like going back to the EBUG situation, I remember watching the Blackhawks game where Scott Foster was put in against the Winnipeg Jets. Now, in that game, he went perfect 7 for 7. So when David Ayres allowed 2 goals on 2 shots, I'm like thinking, all right, he's no Scott Foster, right? Because Scott Foster was perfect.
He's no accountant.
But it was a different situation. One, Scott Foster is a bit younger. He was like 36 or 35, maybe 34. He was in his 30s. I don't know how old he is now, but anyway. So the other thing is that the Hawks already had a commanding lead, 6-2, and then he only had to play 14 minutes. He didn't have to play an entire period. I mean, Ayers played like a period and a half. But what I want to say, just being a Blackhawk fan and watching that game, it stopped being a game for me. Like, you know that feeling when you watch a movie and you get really emotionally involved in the character, and then you're like, oh man, I hope they make it okay. You know what I mean? Like when you're just whatever it is, right? Can you think of like any movie or anything like that where you've had emotional investment in it?
Oh, of course.
Right. And so it's so weird, but that Scott Foster game, it stopped being a game to me, and it became like almost like a movie where now I was rooting for this hero. Like I didn't want him to get hurt. I didn't want him to get not embarrassed, but I didn't want him to allow 10 goals. I didn't want him to get hurt. I had like concern for him, like not like, oh, he's gonna get an injury from a hockey puck, because he's a goalie and goalie gear is really damn good these days. But I just, that was just such an experience, like just watching it. Like I was worried for this guy, not like that he was going to get hurt, but I was just worried. I was just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like is he going to be okay? How is this going to end? Right. When Ayers played, maybe because I'd already seen an EBUG play before, and maybe because I wasn't like really worried about the outcome of the game so much, I was just like, this will be interesting. I want to see what happens. And I'm like, of course, I'm feeling great for him. And then I see Rod Brindamore like roll his eyes, and I'm just like, come on, Rod. Be a little better than that, be better than that, right? Like, because like Quenneville, when Scott Foster walked out, Quenneville like gave this laugh, like, well, this is where the game is. You know what I mean? I've had 2 goalies get hurt in this game, and here's the 3rd goalie. And when Ayers came out, Brindamore just kind of rolled his eyes, but then he kind of made up for it with that impassioned locker room speech at the end after the game. So that was nice.
Yeah, and it definitely adds more emotional attachment to it when it's a team that you actually like and root for and have a somewhat of a vested interest in as a
Right.
fan. So that definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. So just a few other notes here. So Ayers had been a backup in the past for the Toronto Marlies and the Charlotte Checkers, because I think it was last month, the Checkers, coincidentally the farm team for the Carolina Hurricanes, they needed a backup goalie for whatever reason, so he sat on the bench and was their backup for that game. So he could have gone into that too, and then he was also a backup for the Marlies. So I mean, he's been on an AHL bench a couple of times, and now he got to be in an NHL game. So that's just crazy, but awesome. And I'm glad, some people were like, oh, well, the NHL didn't make a big deal about Scott Foster. And it was because he turned down interview requests. He was very polite about it. But I know this because I've talked to people in the Chicago media, like, oh, why didn't you talk? Because they talked to him after the game, because you got to talk after the game to the media, right? And he was still just kind of taking it in. But then after that, he just very politely declined. He did not want to do any interviews. Upper Deck asked about making a hockey card of him. He initially declined, very politely, because I asked him about that. I'm like, hey, where's the Scott Foster card? And they're just like, oh, we asked him, and he very politely said no thank you. But then I guess he relented, or maybe there was a loophole because he was in the 1819 OPG premiere set. But I guess what I'm getting at is like Ayres is just the opposite. Like he's like, hey, like I'm really happy and proud and humbled by this experience, and people want to talk to him, and he's going out there and he's just smiling and very humble, very modest, but making the most of it and just enjoying it, which I think most of us would, and that's okay too. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. So he's making the rounds. He's bringing a lot of publicity, like you said, that the NHL could not buy. So, of course, what is the NHL going to do?
Well, based off of the opinion of some former GMs and some of the comments being made by some of the current NHL executives, it's definitely going to be a discussion at the next the next meetings.
They're going to ruin it. They're going to take the
And
wind out of the sails.
well, here's the thing. Obviously, you can take this is something you can take a side of one way or another. Okay, so on one side, there's nothing wrong with the rule the way it is because the rule book states that you can have a backup goaltender. You could even have a third goaltender on your roster if you wanted, but most teams don't. And your backup goaltender can be pretty much anybody. And there's no rules or regulations to say who it is. It's just always been there's usually that one person at a facility or at a building or that works for a team.
Now, if I may interject there for just a moment, because this is actually a point of contention. Different teams do different things. So in the case of the Maple Leafs, they had David Ayres on staff for that reason. Now, the Blackhawks have a couple of different emergency backup goaltenders. So it's not always Scott Foster at every game. It might be somebody else for a different game because they split it up. And I know that there's I don't know about the Blackhawks, but I'm sure they probably have a similar process. But I know the LA Kings actually have an open tryout for it because I remember reading a really interesting article in the Hockey News. I forgot who wrote it, but it was hilarious. And this guy was he was trying out to be the emergency backup goaltender for the Kings, and they were going to have 3 of them that they would rotate. And he talked about the tryout, and he didn't make it. But so some teams have a more rigorous process, but then you look back at a couple years ago with the Philadelphia Flyers, it was Eric Szymborski who worked for their at their practice facility, coaching kids, right? He played goalie, and so he was a EBUG for the Blackhawks during an afternoon game when Corey Crawford needed an emergency surgery and he couldn't play, so he was brought in as the backup. But then he was also brought in as a backup, an EBUG actually, for a Flyers Devils game a couple months later. So sometimes it's just one guy that they have on staff, and sometimes they have guys that come to the game just for that reason, and they just sit in the press box and nobody knows who they are until their cell phone lights up.
But that's the thing, the way the rule is written, there is no standardized your backup has to be this guy, or it has to be this player, or it has to be this employee, or the way the rule's written, it doesn't specify, it doesn't spell that out.
Right. And so I could see what Brian Burke was saying when he was saying it was an embarrassment. Now, he said he wasn't being disparaging to David Ayres, but I don't always agree with what Brian Burke says. He's a little too old school for me. That, I don't know,
He's the get off my lawn guy.
So's Don Cherry, but I used to like Don Cherry. I still like Don Cherry, but kind of with an asterisk, kind of like steroid era baseball. It was fun, but
look, if you take what these guys are saying, and yeah, you can lump all of these guys in that group of hockey purists or the old school guys or whatever. But if you look at this in a bigger picture, and I'm not saying I do, but I can see this side where you're saying here's a team, Maple Leafs, that is they should be a playoff contention team, but right now they're sitting on the bubble, right? They're in a points battle. You're playing an opponent, and you give whoever your backup is, or your EBUG is, the rink manager, your accountant, your equipment manager, whoever this person is, the beer league guy that plays on Saturday nights, he goes in goal, right? And for whatever reason, you still lose to them. And essentially, the end of the season rolls around and it boils down to you missed the playoffs by 1 point or 2 points because you because you lost. Now, you forfeit millions of dollars in playoff revenue to be able to go. And so from an executive standpoint and from running a team and an owner standpoint and a team manager standpoint, I can see all the scenarios that come through their minds about all of this kind of stuff. In my opinion, though, think about this. Do you want to change the rule books or open up the books and change regulations and things like that because of something that's happened twice in 2 years and pretty much never before that in the modern era of hockey?
Twice in 3 years.
Okay, twice in 3 years.
Okay, but all right, couple of things. One, the Maple Leafs couldn't win that game. That's on the Maple Leafs. They embarrassed
And that's
themselves.
my point.
They weren't shooting the puck. Okay, I mean, Ayers still made a bunch of saves, and he looked sharp towards the end. But the thing is, I mean, obviously he's not an NHL caliber goalie. That's okay. He did what he needed to do. You know, I hate to give a bad analogy, but like it's like beer league when like your goalie doesn't show up, and so it's like you're watching the high school team finish its practice, and then you see one of the teenage goalies come off the ice, and you're like, "Hey kid, is your mom here? We really need a goalie, and I know this is past your bedtime now." But do you want to play with a bunch of you want to play in a beer league game? You know what I mean? Like, because you kind of need you need somebody, right? You know what I mean? Like you're so. I think maybe the embarrassment is it's not just that. It's that, look, if I'm visiting your team and I say, "Oh no, Tim, both of my goalies got hurt," and you say, "Well, that's cool. It's my responsibility as the home team to provide you with an emergency backup goaltender. So I want you to meet my grandfather, our emergency backup goaltender." And I'm just like, "What the hell, dude? Come on. Does he play goalie?" And you're like, "Well, he did when I was 5. You know, I used to play knee hockey on the floor, and he was pretty good." That right? And it's just like, so that's the thing.
That's exactly it, though. I mean, there's no incentive for a team to necessarily have a backup goaltender, or I should say, emergency backup goaltender. There's no real incentive for a team to have somebody there that's got pro credentials to be able to step in and do that, unless they're doing it because they're anticipating using them themselves. Because that's the thing. If you have to play host to that and you have to provide your guests in your building with that emergency backup, and here you are, you've essentially either in the public eye or behind the scenes trained your emergency backup to be as good as, you know, a backup goaltender in the AHL, maybe. Okay, well, now all of a sudden you've thrown this guy that could be pro caliber guy to the other team. So then what do you do? And in a situation like that, here's the thing. I don't remember Scott Foster, the whole thing. Yeah, it was great and it was cool and fun and everything else. I don't remember it getting blown up like this. Like, this is well beyond the, hey, look, an emergency backup got to play. Oh, he got a win.
Because
it's because it's Toronto. I go back to my point. It's Toronto. The Toronto media will suck the life out of this to death.
Oh, yeah, they'll beat a dead horse back to life.
Correct. And that's part of the problem is if it was any team other than the Maple Leafs, we would have forgotten about it yesterday and moved on with our lives.
Right. But the Leafs really had a pathetic showing in that third period. And
they did.
I mean, the Canes did what they had to do.
But the Leafs have had a history, well, not a history, but the Leafs have been on a streak of having pathetic showings over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with an EBUG. It has nothing to do with any of that in this case. It has to do with they're not playing to their potential, and they've got some issues that they need to take care of. It just so happens that this rare thing that happens once, you know, like Halley's Comet, it occurred, and so now we're going to make a big deal. I don't think the NHL should change anything. They shouldn't mess with it.
I think it's interesting when
leave it alone.
when like different teams have different standards. So like in the case of the Flyers, it was one of their youth hockey coaches. With the Maple Leafs, it was the Marlies facilities manager. When it was the Blackhawks, it was one of a number of guys that they have on payroll, if you will, to do that. Not like paid as professionals, but paid as amateur. Maybe the problem is that like with somebody like Scott Foster, the dude plays in like an upper tier men's league. So he plays over at Johnny's Ice House, which used to be where the Blackhawks practiced. That used to be their practice rink. And they have like an upper tier level that's made up of like former pros, minor pros, and college players. And I believe he's in that level. And because he played NCAA college, so he's up there. I mean, he's like in like their top men's league, and he probably plays once a week. Maybe he plays in another league also. I don't know. But the point is that like he has his job, and then he plays his rec hockey at a pretty high level, and then he does this thing. And with Ayers, it was kind of like it's almost like they're double dipping. Like, well, we have this guy on staff who is our facilities manager, and he used to play goaltender. So if we ever need a goalie, yeah, I guess we could probably use him. You know what I mean? It just seemed like kind of cheap and kind of lazy. And again, that's not a diss at David Ayres in any way, shape, or form. I'm glad the way things happened. I was very happy for him. I was happy it was with the Carolina Hurricanes because they're a team that's just soaking up this attention. You know what I mean? They're just like,
of course,
Caniacs are passionate fans. The Hurricanes named him an honorary jerk right away. At their Tuesday game, he was sounding the storm siren at the beginning of the game. In addition to like, being on all these different talk shows and radio shows and stuff. So, I mean,
the governor made him like an honorary citizen of North Carolina.
I think that's awesome. I love that. So, I'm glad it worked out that way, but I could see, there's definitely a difference between having this guy on staff who's already doing all these other responsibilities versus like having somebody who's maybe a little bit better suited for the job in the first place, right? And again, like I said, that's not a diss. I loved how it turned out. I'm a little annoyed that the NHL wants to mess with this because sometimes I just think it's kind of fun where they find their EBUG for that day,
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think they should change it. I mean, it doesn't happen often enough, and it's not something that goes down that much.
Now, here's one thing though. If you think about it, and I don't have the data to qualify this assessment, but I believe actually, let's talk about this because again, I don't have the numbers on this. Goalies are more prone to injury now because of the butterfly style, which is not a natural movement for the human body. So goalies 50 years ago were not doing the butterfly style. I mean, Patrick Waugh did the butterfly style, but now goalies do that butterfly style all the time. So we have this unnatural movement in the body that's causing stress on the hips and the joints, and so they're more prone to injury. So now what's happening is that you're having goalies get injured more. And then I'm not saying that both goalies are going to have that type of injury in a game, but it is possible for, you see what I'm saying? Like, it kind of used to seem
You're saying the probability is probably higher now than it ever has been.
Yeah, and it's probably going to get even higher than that unless there's one or two things happen. The goaltending style changes, which I don't see happening anytime soon, or teams start going with more of this 1-1A model where you have like a starter and like a semi-starter, and not like Tom Barrasso for 60 games and Wendell Young for 20 games, right? Or Ed Belfour for 70 games and Jeff Hackett, not a good example. 90-91, Ed Belfour for like 70 something games and like Jacques Cloutier for like 5 games. You know what I mean? Like, something ridiculous like that. Now you need more of like almost like a
You need
I
a
don't know.
platoon,
You
essentially.
need like two starters basically.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of teams will bring up their top AHL guy for a few games a year just to, you know, get him some exposure and play around, especially when the schedule is beneficial.
Right.
Um, you know, you've seen that. You've seen that in a lot of teams, and you know, occasionally they surprise you, and okay, we'll keep them around for a couple more games, and then, you know, who knows what happens. I mean,
Right.
the Penguins are prime for that with Jari and Murray. I mean, those were
Mm-hmm.
both AHL goalies, and now they're the starters, and you know,
That's
they
how it should be.
yeah. So I mean that's how they grew. You know, and it's something else on this. Not to again beat the dead horse, but
That's
and
okay.
I didn't come up with this idea, but I did hear it, and I didn't think it was necessarily a bad one. What about giving another player on the team that job and be like, okay, here's another shot blocking defenseman that we have and likes to throw himself in front of pucks. Well, give him, you know, couple however much he needs, you know, couple hours of practice time a month in goal and give him a shot. That way, if it ever runs down to that, we could strap some pads on him, throw him in the net.
It is such a highly specialized yeah, it's such a
Remember,
highly
there's an E. It's an emergency.
no, I
So
get it. But
that's
would you rather I guess I'd rather have an NHL defenseman who um an NHL defenseman play goalie than like a rec league goalie play goalie in an NHL game.
well, number one, they understand the speed of the game and they
They understand the
understand what's
speed of the
going
game.
on in front of them. They know the
Yeah,
plays, they know the playbook, they know the tendencies of the players,
but in a
they know a
different
lot of that.
but they know but from a different perspective. It's like it's like when you play like when I play hockey and when I play defense and I play and then I've started playing wing this season. Oh my god, it's such a different experience. You know what I mean? Like you just it's just a different perspective. Like um I would say that yes, I like what you're thinking. I know that like Paul Bissonnette a couple years ago or 5 or 6 years ago, I think he suited up as a backup goalie because they had to dress two goalies. So he suited up as a goalie, but he just sat on the bench. But and I know that like after Saturday's game, Kelly Rudy talked about Kings practices when he was a teammate of Charlie Huddy, when Huddy played for the Kings, and he said that Huddy would sometimes throw on Rudy's gear and play goalie, like if it was like it was like an optional skate or something, just to take some shots. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, I would have felt confident with Charlie Huddy going in if I had went down and the other goalie went down, and if he went in our as our goalie, I would have felt confident with that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean you have a point. Like a defenseman would probably be the best guy for that. Um, but again, like I'm saying, I'm arguing that it's such a specialized position. I mean, you're wearing different skates, and those skates feel different, and your movement is different, and the things you can and can't do is different, and the stick that you have to handle is different. You know what I mean? It's all different.
Yeah. I was just thinking, you know, just on the lines of what they were saying is it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense than, you know, calling up your CPA firm and saying, send me your best accountant that plays rec league goalie because I need him as a backup. So
Right. So okay, so that was a great story, and I was happy to watch that game live, and uh, hopefully David Ayres gets a hockey card. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I guess we would be remiss if we didn't mention Ovechkin's 700th goal. Alexander
who?
Ovechkin. Alexander Ovechkin. He is the captain of the Washington Capitals, and
Oh,
he
they still
just
have a team in Washington? I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh,
they've rebounded since 74, 75.
oh.
They've climbed up the charts since that season.
Oh, that's that team that has that garbage can that plays for them.
Oh, they're the team that won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the greatest goal scorer of this era playing for
Yeah,
them.
it's hard to argue with that. 700 goals. Guys, he's a scoring machine.
So I gotta point out, because now everybody's like, oh, he could probably catch Gretzky, and catch Wayne Gretzky's record, and I'm chuckling because one of the Puck Junk writers, Blake Isaac, he first suggested that in an article that he wrote last year. It was one of his Blake's Takes columns where he asked, can Ovi catch Gretzky? And I swear to God, that was the first time that I heard somebody bring that up. I'm not saying that somebody else didn't bring it up before Blake, but what I'm saying is now everybody's saying, oh, he could do it. He could do it. It's possible. And our boy Blake here said this like over a year ago. So it's just like, welcome to the club, mainstream hockey media.
Well, things aren't a reality until they're in your face. And there they are.
Unless you have a little thing called foresight.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, you were just talking about injuries to goalies. I mean,
yep.
How many injuries have we seen in the last 2 years in the NHL? I mean, the man hours that teams are down, it's a ton. It is a ton.
Well, less
this
than
is a hard
football.
league to play in and to stay healthy in. And so the fact that you have these Iron Man players that rarely ever get hurt and rarely ever go down with injuries or illnesses or sicknesses, and to let alone on top of that be one of the best players in the league to go out there and consistently score and put points up and just put the puck in the back of the net. I mean, you haven't seen this kind of goal scorer, and the fact that he's going to potentially catch Wayne Gretzky and hit that record that, I mean, let's face it, almost everybody that's been involved with hockey since the record was set has said that record's never going to be broken. Well, now we're looking potential history in the face here. So it was definitely a huge milestone, and he's only 100 and I forget what the total number, because he scored a couple more since he broke the record. I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's still got a ways to go, but that's great. Also, got to mention the birthday. Happy birthday to Slapshot. And also to you, Tim, because you guys are the same age. You and Slapshot.
We are the same age. I'm actually 5 days older than the greatest hockey movie ever.
Let me ask you this. When was the first time you saw Slapshot?
The very first time I saw Slapshot?
I love asking this question.
The first time I can remember when I saw it, I was in elementary school. I would say about 3rd or 4th grade.
Oh, geez. You were just a baby.
Yeah. So that was probably the very first time I saw it. And the thing is, where I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, there was a town not far from there that some way the team was based upon, and that was the Johnstown Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the Johnstown Chiefs, actually, when we moved from the Pittsburgh area, we were only about 30 miles from there. They used to play at the War Memorial, and that was that's what made that movie all the more, magical, I guess, because it was like, even though these are the Charlestown Chiefs, they really mean the Johnstown Chiefs. And so, that's like the kind of thing that everybody...
Well, they were the Johnstown Jets, and then they renamed themselves to the Chiefs probably by the time you were a kid.
Yeah.
To kind of pair it off to piggyback off the success of the film.
Sure.
Because I think originally they wanted to call the team the Johnstown Jets, and the Johnstown Jets were like, no. They're like, all right, Charlestown Chiefs. And then the Jets were like, oh, yeah, we're changing our name to the Chiefs because, this is who Slapshot based it on. You know what I mean? Right. Like, after the fact, they thought it was cool.
But, yeah, I was young the first time I saw it.
So you've actually been to that stadium?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's got to be pretty cool.
I mean, it's not that great. It's an old barn. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that. And the last time I was there, now, keep in mind, it's been many, many years since I've been there.
Yep.
And even since then, they were one of the winners of the Kraft Hockey Bill. So I haven't seen it since they were able to, take that money and do the renovations and everything. But prior to that, I mean, it was small, old, it's what you would imagine of a building that was built during the time frame that it was put up. It reminds me a lot of around here where I live now. We take the kids to go to the circus, and there's a town near here called Hammond,
Mm-hmm.
and at the Hammond Civic Center is where they usually have the Shriner Circus, and we usually take the kids when they come around, and it's an old. We've even seen WWE wrestling there too.
Oh wow.
But it's also an old, and that it kind of reminds me of that. Like when you see it in the daylight, it just looks like an old gymnasium from a high school. But then they turn down the lights, and it's this big arena and everything. But as soon as the lights come on, you're just like, oh yeah, I forgot.
I want to know the circumstances that led to an 8-year-old Tim Parish in 3rd grade seeing Slapshot.
I just think it was on. I mean, it was
on TV.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was.
It was on cable.
Yeah, we had cable then.
I mean, so you saw it had the nudity and the swearing.
I want to say swearing, yes. Nudity, I don't recall until later. Maybe I was oblivious to that then.
The swearing?
Maybe I'm oblivious to that now. I don't know.
Well, now we are, yeah, of course. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, or maybe some of the innuendo just flew over your head because you.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
See, I just
like to see the fighting and the blood and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, the first time I saw Slapshot, and it was just such a perfect storm of how this happened. I had these 2 friends that I used to do hockey lessons with when I was 14. There was a brother who was 13 and another brother who was 11. So I went to spend the night at their house. And so one boy's 13. We're pretty close in age, like not even a year apart, but we were in a different grade anyway. And then his brother was 11. And then there was another kid that also played hockey with us. We were all kind of in kid hockey lessons together, but we were the older kids in the class, so we just kind of clumped together. So anyways, I'm spending the night at these boys' houses. My mom rented a Slapshot to watch at the sleepover. Now, my mom had seen Slapshot, and she didn't care if I saw nudity, and she didn't care if I saw nudity at 14. And she didn't care that I heard swearing. You know what I mean? She'd probably be more concerned with something that was abhorrently violent or gory or whatever. So she rents us this movie to watch. Now, the funny thing is that these 2 boys, their mother was a born-again Christian. So if she had known what was on that tape, there is no way she would have let us watch Slapshot. But what happened was when I came over, they're like, oh, Sal's coming over. Can we rent some video games? And their mom's like, yeah, sure. So we rented a few games or whatever. And, anything that had box art that looked too, demonic or whatever, she'd be like, oh, you can't rent that game. That game looks like it's the devil made it or whatever, right? And so, I had to talk her into Kid Icarus because I'm like, oh, it's Greek mythology. Oh, well, Greek mythology, that's a different religion, and that's not the one true religion. And I'm like, whatever, right? So anyway,
wow.
After I know this is a long story, but I promise there's a payoff, right? So after dinner, we get into this discussion about religion, me and the boy's mom, right? And the 2 brothers. So they tiptoe off to go play these video games because they're like, cool, our mom's not up our ass right now. We can play these games, right? So they're playing these games without their mother breathing down their neck. They have this free time. And I'm talking with this woman about, because I used to go to Catholic school. She's a born-again Christian. So I'm just interested in what she has to say, because you're interested, especially when you're at that age, 14 or 15, and you're having a conversation with an adult And it wasn't like she was trying to convert me to Christianity, although she was. But I just wanted to know what she thought, because I thought, oh, all these born again Christian people are crazy, but yeah, you seem pretty cool. Yeah, so we're talking for like over an hour. Then she's like, well, I don't think I'm going to stay up and watch the movie with you boys because it's getting late. So you boys just camp out in the living room and enjoy the movie and don't put it on too loud. So we're watching this movie, and then they start swearing right away, and they're like playing that game, and they're yelling at Reggie Dunlop, and they're calling him like names, and then they start like throwing out f-bombs and this, that, and the other thing. And the boys, like, they never were allowed to watch movies like that, right, with swearing, and they start laughing. And then the scene where you see some nudity, where Reg is hooking up with the Ducks goalie's wife,
Yeah.
and she's a lesbian, right? Like, so they're giggling uncontrollably, right? Because there's some nudity in this, right? And I'm like, hey, not too loud, not too loud. We don't want to wake your mom, right? Because if we wake your mom and she comes in here, she's gonna stop this, right? So we loved every minute of it. It was hilarious. We couldn't laugh out loud as we wanted to, because if we woke the Bible lady, then that would be the end of watching Slapshot, right? So
Yeah.
the next day, their mom was like, "Oh, well, how was the movie?" And we're just like, "Oh yeah, it was good." We're like trying not to like grin too hard at what we had, just this ill-begotten R-rated movie that we were too young for. I mean, I was the right age for it, but whatever. So it's just fun, how sometimes you just stumble upon it on TV, and sometimes, like, a parent just says, "Oh, here you go, kid, watch this movie, and now you're a man or a woman," right?
Yeah. I I didn't have the same experience with my first time watching it, but you know, it was still entertaining to me as a younger kid.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like I said, I've been to the War Memorial. Well, I think now it's called something else. It's like I think it's got a sponsorship now, but
Hmm.
Chiefs no longer play there. They got relocated to like South Carolina or something, and
Hmm.
now there's a I think it's a USHL team that plays there now. Is the main attraction,
Hmm.
and then a number of like high school and minor programs utilize the place, but it still looks the same. I've been back in that area a few times, and same way it looked in like 1984 is how it looks today, pretty
Wow.
much. So yeah,
So you want to talk real quick about the Upper Deck MVP contest?
sure.
All right,
Um,
talk to us about this.
all right, so for those that don't know, Upper Decks ran a My MVP campaign in order to shine a spotlight on NHL fans, mainly the super fans that are all out there. And this was done through mostly the Twitter. I sound like I'm 75 years old. Um, so it was run through the Twitter, and
Kids, get off my Twitter.
yes. Um, and essentially, it boils down to this: nominate somebody that you think is a super fan of a team, and they get voted on by the Twitter universe, and whoever wins gets named as the My MVP winner for their specific team. All of those names get thrown into a hat, and those get voted on, and then there's one grand prize winner. So some of the criteria for this, you have to be obviously a big fan, and the key is these are people that have a positive impact in their local hockey communities. So anybody that you would consider to be valuable enough to be nominated were put into this mix. So um, this week, Upper Deck announced the finalists for each of the teams, and the voting for the ultimate MVP and the grand prize winner will take place between March 5th and March 15th. So if you're not following Upper Deck on Twitter, go to their page, follow Upper Deck, follow the Upper Deck hockey account, and you'll see the updates as they post them, along with the photos and pictures of everybody that's eligible. A couple of things, just side things that I wanted to point out is not every NHL team was participating in this. So it's pretty much, from what I could tell, it's just, well, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it, honestly. So like there's teams that aren't represented in the mix. The Canadians aren't in the mix. Who else did I figure out wasn't in there? I don't think the Capitals are on the list. I don't think the Kings are on the list. Florida, I don't believe was on the list. Oh wait, Florida was on the list. Maybe it was Tampa Bay. I don't know, but there's a whole bunch of teams that aren't represented as being eligible to win. So if you're a fan of those teams, sorry for your luck. But yeah, so that's going on. So the nominations are over now. It's just the time to vote. And if whoever wins, it's actually pretty cool. You get your own card. They're going to put you in the MVP set for 2021. So you'll be packed out in their product. You also get 2 tickets to the Stanley Cup Finals with hotel accommodations. You win the Hart Trophy, not to be confused with the Hart Trophy in the NHL, but the Hart as in HEART. And then you also get a whole bunch of branded items like T-shirt, hat, bag, pin, window clings. I don't know if there's a yo-yo in there too, but there should be.
Is there an Upper Deck Snuggie in there?
There might be. You never know.
Yeah.
And then there's also first place, second place, third place winners that also get lesser items, but they do win prizes.
Well, my goal in life is to be a super short print in an Upper Deck product. So
Hey.
I'm not in this contest, but there's always hope for a future contest.
My goal in life was to do a podcast with a writer that wrote for the back of Upper Deck cards, and I'm living my dream right now.
Wow, man, I gotta write you some better dreams then.
Oh, come on. Don't sell yourself short.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a fun little project. Just talking about the Sibling Sensation set, which was originally going to be a new Bloodline set, but I guess Topps had copyrighted or trademarked Bloodlines for some sort of not WWE, but MMA.
It was a UFC set.
Yeah, because I think they're talking literal lines of blood on the mat, maybe, I don't know, and
like the Bloody Battles goalie fight cards.
Oh yeah, but those are cool. But yeah, with the Bloodlines, we'll have to talk more about that. I mean, it came out over a year ago, and not a whole lot of stores were like participating in that Upper Deck Family Day thing. So fortunately, Upper Deck sent me a bunch of the sets, and I was able to just send them to people that I knew. Like, hey, here's a set of these Bloodline cards. And they're like, what are these? And I'm like, oh, wasn't your local store giving them out? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, well, here, have a set. I wrote the text on the back. Okay. That's pretty much the conversation. But
people just don't appreciate your genius.
Yeah. Well, writers don't get respect because many will write for free. So you got, a million blogs out there. So it's seen as a skill that's not very important, right? Like if you can there are other skills where people will like pay money for, but like writing, like photography is another one that's become really cheapened because you have people just putting stuff up on like Flickr and Instagram and photo blogs and stuff like that. And, people just like be like, oh, well, here's a photo of a thing. I could just use this. You know what I mean? Like, or I could just ask this person, can I use your photo? You know what I mean? Like, so it's tougher for photographers too. It's tougher for everybody. You have websites like Fiverr where like they'll be like, yeah, somebody will design your logo for like $5. And what used to take thousands of hours and thousands of dollars to do is now being boiled down to $5 or $10.
I should start. I should start something that I will watch a TV show so you don't have to for $5. I mean that would be good. I could make some money off of that.
I'll pay you $5 to watch This Is Us. Because that show just looks terrible. And I always see it advertised during hockey games, and I'm just like, on NBC, and I'm just like, no. It's like unnecessary melodrama.
Can you pay me $5 if my wife watches it?
Nope, that doesn't count.
Oh, because she does watch it.
I have to ask her about it.
You will. She's watched every season.
So, let's get to some questions, shall we? I'm really anxious to get to this part because I'm excited about this.
It's time. It's time.
It's time.
For listener mailbag.
Listener mailbag. The Puck Junk Listener Mailbag. Although these were not actual pieces of mail. They were tweets.
That's the same as mail in 2020.
This could be the tweet. I don't like tweet bag. That sounds wrong.
That sounds like something different.
Yeah. So, all right. So this first one is from Kevin Paulson. And he asked, what, if any, Facebook groups or other social media do you use to build and shape your collection? Now, I'm going to admit I'm a little weak on this area. So I'm just going to tell you the sites that I've used. I've used Trading Card Database, which I love just because I love referring to them for checklists, for images. It's a lot faster to just find stuff on that site. Like if I'm researching cards, I usually go there first now. But then you can like fill out like want lists and have lists, and then it'll match you to people, and they'll say, oh, this guy has 30 cards that you need, and he has 28 cards that that he needs, so it'll work out a trade between the two of you. Like it'll tell you who you're matched with. So I've done some trades through that. And
I agree with that, and I have more to add on that in a second. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and add to that?
Oh, I was just going to say, Trading Card DB is a great place to find things you wouldn't normally find floating around out there, especially because you're dealing with other traders and not necessarily the sellers or the investors or those types of people. Because one thing about this site is in order to use it, it's very labor intensive. And it's labor intensive on your part. The site can be as good or as bad as you want it to be. And I've been on there for a long time, but I've only recently began really using it. And I've been starting to log some of my collections on there, and it is very time consuming. But a couple things it does. It gets you intimate with your cards again. Well, that sounded bad. That came out wrong.
No, we know what you meant.
I assure you, my cards are not stuck together. What I mean is, you get to you see them, you're looking at them, you're making lists, you're discovering again what's in that collection, and so that's really cool. The other thing is, most of the data is already there, and any of it that's not, you can put in, or you can suggest to them that they add it. You can add photos. You can do all of that kind of stuff. You can even log how much you paid for stuff, and it'll keep all of those records. So I've been burnt on sites like this before, but this one's been around for a while. And I think that's probably why I joined a long time ago and have kind of lurked in the background sort of. And I've just now finally decided, you know what, these guys aren't going anywhere. So let's do this. So that's why I'm doing that. Yeah, so go ahead with your other options.
No, we both like Trading Card Database. I've made some trades on Twitter, and I'm not going to say Twitter is the be all end all, but the thing is that when you're on Twitter a lot and you start to get to know people and you start to see who's trustworthy and whatnot, I've made purchases on Twitter. I've made trades on Twitter. Sometimes I've just put up cards and said, free, who wants one? And people will take one. And other times people have said, what's a card you're looking for? And let's see if somebody can help you out. And I know, and I forgot who it was. It was so kind, though, that like I said, I really want that Upper Deck baseball card of Michael Jordan in a White Sox jersey. And somebody sent it to me. It was so nice. I mean, he sent me a couple of cards of Jordan with the White Sox. First from that one from like 91 or 92, which was just kind of like Jordan at batting practice. And then a couple from a few seasons later when he was actually like in the system and did like spring training with the White Sox. So like I've done trades on Twitter. And I've done trades on the National Hockey Card Day trade group on Facebook. And then I've also done trades on a website called laststicker.com, which is people who mainly collect stickers, Panini stickers, the top stickers from this year, the O-Pee-Chee stickers from the 80s, not just hockey, but all sports that have sticker albums, laststicker.com. They even have non-sports. It's probably more for people who are into sticker albums, though, even though they will also, like, you could say what, like, hockey cards you have to trade. Not a lot of people like really mess around with trading the cards on that site. It's mainly for sticker enthusiasts. So those are the ones I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, and our lists are very, very similar, minus the sticker part. I've used Twitter quite a few times to make some trades and purchases. Obviously eBay, but I don't consider that social media. A lot of people use Instagram these days now, but I'm not young or cool enough to be on there. So as for Facebook, like you said, the National Hockey Card Day trading page is a good one, but it's mainly focused on that.
Yeah.
Current year, old years, but it is a very good community, and there's quite a good audience there. I've also been a lurker for a while with a group called Flying V. Flying V was a breaker group from Twitter that kind of became a Facebook group. Now, yes, they do breaking, and I have my opinions about that. But at the same time, they open that group up for selling and trading as well. And so there's a lot of people on there that are always looking to make trades and make deals and things like that. So I haven't done anything on it yet, but like I said, I've been lurking. And I don't know if people really use the forums anymore, do they? Like Blowout Forum or Sports Card Forum, Trading Card Forum, or any of those. I don't really hear people talk about them that much anymore.
So my problem with Sports Card Forum, it was a lot of work to match up with what you needed. Like, yeah, I could list out all my cards, but you'd have to look and see if you needed any of them.
And it uses that forum format where everything's text-based and it's all, like, really super long and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of work. And so sites like Trading Card DB and Last Sticker, you input the ones that you want, you input the ones that you need, and then it finds you matches based on that. So
yeah, and that's definitely one of the big pluses to Trading Card Database. And I assure you I'm not on their payroll, but I definitely appreciate what they've done and the site that they have and the database they've created. It's very, once you get into it and get past the fact that you are going to have to do the work yourself, once you do the work, you don't have to do anything else.
Now, real quick about Flying V, I actually bought cards from them, and it was a great transaction.
Okay, well, there you go.
It was items were well packaged. They were sent securely and quickly. I bought a bunch of Young Guns. It was like low-end Blackhawk Young Guns from Flying V, and I was so hype about Dominic Cahoon, and I got a bunch of his Young Guns, and then like a couple weeks later he was traded. A couple months later, whatever, to the Penguins, and he's been on the move again.
Yeah, and I thought, I'm gonna go after some Cahoons early this season.
Funny.
And I started a small Cahoon collection back in October and November, and then I stopped for a little while, and then I thought about picking it back up a week ago, and no, he's no longer there. So I guess I should revive my Connor Sheary collection.
Wait, did I ever give you those Cahoon Young Guns or no?
I don't think so.
No.
Maybe. I don't know.
So I don't know. I had
so.
like 6 of them, but it was funny. Somebody on last sticker, I guess at the time, was like, "Hey, I'm in Europe. Are there any European players that you like? I'll throw in some stickers just for you to have." And I said, "You got anything?" I think he was from Germany, and I'm like, "You got anything Dominic Cahoon?" He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And he sent me some like Dominic Cahoon cards from Germany and some stickers of like Cahoon and like a couple other guys who are now in the NHL but started in Germany. These are like recent guys. And I'm like, oh, these are really cool, And I came across them the other day. I'm like, Cahoon, I barely knew thee, Like, you were becoming my favorite Blackhawk, and now I guess you're my favorite Saber.
Yeah, but you got a different Dominic to like now on the Hawks.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be gone in 2 years.
You think so?
He'll get in that contract year, and then they'll trade him.
I don't know. I heard some interesting talk today about Patty Kane possibly disappearing and doing one final hurrah in Buffalo of all places.
Well, that's his hometown.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting.
I don't think Buffalo has anything that the Blackhawks want.
Well, not at the moment, but a couple years from now, maybe.
Yeah,
you never know.
I don't know.
But anyway,
Kane for Eichel. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They want their native son back.
Okay. That's too much of a price. But then again, who would you do it? There's nothing there.
Shall we move on to the next question?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's.
Next question. Davis asked, is it a hockey faux pas to wear your team's third jersey to another city's arena? I'm planning to wear my brand new Pedersen Retro Skate Vancouver Canucks jersey in Toronto next week, and I've been told that I can only wear a regular Canucks jersey in another team's arena. So the question is, he was asking specifically, can you wear a third jersey to another team's arena? But I think the question is really, can you wear a jersey of a team that's not playing in that game? So if we're at a Penguins Blackhawks game, can I wear my Sharks jersey? So I have an answer to this question. I actually have a very solid opinion on this. My answer is yes.
Is that the question?
Yeah, well, he's asking if you should wear, if it's a faux pas, meaning like a mistake, to wear a jersey to a game of a team
where neither team is playing.
Right, because he wants to wear a Canucks jersey. Oh, is it? I don't know. Is it the Canucks? I guess the game is like this Saturday. So
I just assumed it was Canucks playing Maple Leafs.
Guess I should have done my homework ahead of time. So let's see. Okay, yeah, they're playing the Canucks, right?
I assumed it was Vancouver, Toronto.
Oh, okay, yeah, they are. So I'd say, yeah, where
either way, why not? Exactly.
Well, okay, if you're there to cheer on the Canucks, it doesn't matter if you're wearing the Canucks skate jersey, the Flying V jersey, the old school stick jersey, the weird whale sea jersey. You know what I mean? Like, it's a Canucks jersey, right? Wear it. Wear that jersey to the game, because you're there to root on the Canucks, and it doesn't matter which jersey it is, right? You're there to support your team, right? So you wear like, what did Putty say? Got to support the team, right?
I want to know who actually said this. It had to have been a Toronto fan. Oh, you can't wear that jersey in our stadium. Come on.
Well, here's the other thing, though, is that
certain stadiums you take your life into your own hands wearing the opposing team's jersey, like any team that plays in Philadelphia. I mean, that's I'd be fearful for your life.
Mm-hmm.
But if you watch hockey on TV, you see people in other jerseys. I don't wear it. Be proud of your team.
So, but let's assume that he wanted to wear the skate jersey to a game between two teams, and neither was the Canucks.
So you're saying you wear a different jersey other than the two teams that are playing?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're a hockey fan, why not?
Absolutely. I agree. See, I got into an argument with a friend of mine who's a big football fan, and he's like, you either wear the jersey of the one team or you wear the jersey of the other team. And if you wear a different jersey, then you're confused and you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like,
what if you're a fan of the other team, but you just happen to get tickets to that game?
Right. Or you're just not emotionally invested. I used to go to Blackhawk games in the 2000s, and I'd wear my Sharks jersey. Not because they were playing the Sharks, but just the Blackhawks were so bad. And like, I think they were playing like the Maple Leafs one game, and it was like just a really bad game. I wasn't there for the Maple Leafs, and I wasn't there for the Blackhawks. I was just there because somebody gave me like 6 tickets to a game. So me and some people went, and you know, it was like, I want to wear this, I want to wear my Islanders fish sticks jersey because it's hilarious, right? Like, I think there's really only 2 places that you can wear a hockey jersey: hockey game or a sports convention. You can't like wear them.
I would
to a
also
wedding,
say church.
a funeral. You can't wear them to church.
Sure, you can.
You can't.
I don't know where you think you live, but
Well, maybe
where I
you wear them
live, yes, you can.
Okay, all right. So like when I got my Quebec Raffles IHL jersey, I wore that to a convention. And I was just so like, oh my God, this jersey's awesome, and I'm gonna wear it. And like I got compliments because people were like, oh, that's a cool hockey jersey. You know what I mean? That's cool. You know, it was cool. It was cool. Like people complimented it, right? Or when I went to like sometimes I'll go to like a Wolves game. Well, I go to Wolves games quite a bit this year because I got a partial season ticket plan, and I'll see people just wearing like the most random cool jerseys. I mean, I've seen, of course, people in Goon jerseys with 69 on the back, Slapshot jerseys with Hansen on the back, Mighty Duck jerseys with Goldberg on the back, but then also like jerseys of teams that no longer exist. Like there's always somebody in a Nordiques jersey, and there's always somebody in like, an old NHL jersey of a player who doesn't play anymore. You know what I mean? Like I saw somebody in like a Mike Richter New York Rangers Liberty third jersey, if you remember those, right?
Yeah.
That's a cool freaking jersey. And it wasn't like he was there to cheer on the Rangers farm team. He was just wearing this jersey to a hockey game, and it was like a cool jersey to see. So a lot of times I appreciate seeing those fun jerseys. So if I saw somebody in a skate jersey, just randomly at a Vancouver Canucks skate jersey, just randomly at a Wolves game, I'd be like, yo, man, cool jersey. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be like, doofus, the Canucks aren't playing.
That's what I said to the guy that had the Mike Liut whale jersey at the kids' basketball game 2 weeks ago.
You were like, cool jersey. And
to your point about jerseys that don't have anything to do, I wear my Vulgarians jersey all the time.
Vulgarians?
Yeah, the View Askew Vulgarians. It's number 37 on the back.
Oh, yeah, the View Askew jersey.
I wear that all the time.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
It is. Yeah, I've seen you wear it a few times at shows and stuff.
People ask me all the time. They're like, oh, is that a hockey jersey? I'm like, yep. Because they don't understand. Or then people are like, oh, I know what that is. Do you? And then they look at the back and see the number. Oh, what is that? And I just don't tell them, because if you don't know, then you don't know.
Yeah. So, so definitely wear your jersey, wear it proudly, wear it wherever you want, wear it to church, wear it to bed.
Just know that you will be ridiculed by the opposing team. And as long as you can get past that and have fun with it.
Well, once in a while, like, again, maybe
unless you're in Philadelphia, then you might be murdered.
Right? But like when we used to go to Wolves games in the 90s, I'd wear a Wolves jersey, and my roommate would wear my Fish Sticks jersey because, well, two reasons. One, because the Fish Sticks New York Islanders jersey was awesome, but two, in the late 90s, the Wolves were partially affiliated with the Islanders. So it made sense to wear a Fish Sticks jersey to a Wolves game, because that was around the time when Ricky DiPietro, he was playing for the Wolves, and then he was also like getting called up to the Islanders. You know, it was like on the bubble for those few seasons. So
yes, that was before he got punched out by Brent Johnson.
Yes, and that ended his career.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
You shouldn't. Hey, getting a broken jaw is not funny. Not that I would know what that feels like, but I'm sure it's not funny. What was I going to say though? I mean, dude, check this out. A little confession to make here. I actually wore a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. Wait. To a Blackhawks game when they were playing the Penguins. Now, here's the funny thing. I wore my Blackhawk coat over the Penguins jersey. Then when we got to our seats, I took off my coat, put it on my chair, and the guy sitting next to me looked at me and said, "You traitor." Now, a little bit of context.
Because you're sending mixed messages to the people.
A little bit of context here. It was early 2001. What happened around that time?
Early 2001?
Yeah.
In
hockey.
What happened in 2001 in hockey? Let's see.
Okay, in the interest of time, please don't play dumb. You know the answer.
Was that when... are you talking about when Yager got traded?
No, when Mario Lemieux came out of
retirement.
Mario
Lemieux came back out of retirement?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Was that the first time or the second time? Second time.
Right. So I had tickets to that game, and I was so excited to see Lemieux play again. And so my aunt and I went.
Your jersey was a Lemieux jersey, right?
You know what? I didn't actually have a Lemieux jersey. It was the Penguins jersey that said Pittsburgh diagonally down the front.
Okay.
No
name on the back?
I don't think it had. I know I have one that has. I have that cool third jersey from the late 90s with Lemieux on the back, but I don't know if I had it at the time. I can't remember.
Was it a Francois Leroux jersey?
No. It's Mario Lemieux.
Okay.
But anyways, I was so excited to see Lemieux come back. And so anyways, so I take off my Blackhawk jacket. I have this Penguins jersey on, and this Blackhawk fan next to me looks at me and says, "You traitor." And I looked at him and I said, and this is right when warm-ups were starting, and Lemieux came out, and everybody started everybody at the United Center got to their feet and gave a standing ovation when Mario Lemieux came out on the ice. And I said to the guy, I said, "I'm here for him. He's better than anybody in this arena." And the guy nodded and he said, "Yeah, you're right." And that was the end of it.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm like, he's better than anybody in this arena. And he's like, "Yeah, you're right." So, I mean, there's a point where, like, I like this team and you like that team, but our fandom, our shared fandom of hockey transcends that. And that's what I really feel what it's like. That's why, I mean, you know, somebody's like, "Oh, I would never wear a Red Wings jersey because I'm a Blackhawks fan." Well, I look at it and go, you know what? The Red Wings were in the same division with the Blackhawks from like the early 70s to like the late 2000s. But before that, they were not in like the same division, right? So like, or late 2000s, 2018 or whatever they went to the East, right? So everybody says, okay, the Red Wings were the enemy. They were the enemy. They were the enemy. If somebody said, "Hey, Sal, here is this game-used Tim Shovelday jersey," I'd be like, "Whoa, that's awesome. Thank you." Or here is a replica Gordie Howe jersey. I'd be like, "F yeah, I'm wearing that jersey." You know what I mean? It's Gordie Howe. You know what I mean? I would be like, just because the Red Wings are a team. They had good years. They had bad years. They had players, but you know, rivalries the same thing. Like one time I was wearing a Vancouver Canucks t-shirt when I was teaching a class, and one of my students looked at me and said, "How could you wear that t-shirt?" And I go, what, this Canucks shirt? And he's like, yeah, they're the enemy of the Blackhawks. This was when the Canucks and the Blackhawks were like beating up on each other in the playoffs. And I go, yeah, but they're a pretty good opponent. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, they're a good team. He's like, yeah. And I looked at him and he was wearing a Darth Vader t-shirt. I'm like, how could you wear that t-shirt? He goes, what? I'm like, Darth Vader. He's a bad guy. Why would you wear that shirt? He goes, but he's awesome. I go, yeah, but there was that time where he murdered the women and the children of the Sand People, and then he killed all the little Jedi children, younglings, and he's like, all right, you got a point, you got a point. You know what I mean? Like, you like the essence of the thing, right? And I don't want to get too down in like, it's a jersey of that horrible team that I'm supposed to hate because we play them 6 times a season or whatever.
Right.
Too much hate in the world. Oh,
I agree.
Oh, which brings us to our next question. So,
oh boy.
Junkwax Twins asks, is there a worse product than ITG Vault, 1-1 buybacks, and whatnot? Have at it, my man.
Is there a worse product than In the Game Vault? Yeah, the 2012 Panini America Artistic Impression sketch cards from football, those were pretty awful. But if you don't know what those are, Panini had the great idea to show up to the rookie premiere and hand all of the draft picks, basically the spacer or whatever you call them, the slugs from the packs, the white cardboard, and said, here, draw a picture and we'll put it in a product. Yeah, that was real smart. So you had a bunch of stick figure pictures and dumb things that they stuck in there. Anyway, but if I'm sticking to hockey, so...
But wait, because Dustin Byfuglien drew one of those cards for a hockey product.
Did he?
Yeah.
Was it awful?
Yeah,
I don't know that I've ever seen it.
It was a little stick figure in a boat, and I remember somebody pulling that from a pack, and he signed it. It was a little stick figure in a boat, and somebody pulled it at the National in like 2011, and they're like, I don't know who this guy is. And I'm like, oh, that's a hockey guy. He used to be on the Blackhawks, but he got traded. And he goes, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, do you want to trade me that card? Because I know it's like ridiculous and terrible, but I'll trade you for it. And he's like, oh, I don't know what it's worth, right? That's what they always do. I'm too afraid to trade this card because I don't want it. I don't want to be ripped off, man, right? It's like, dude, you're in a football jersey. Let me buy you some football cards. We'll call it even, right? But then what happened was that I guess, I don't know if the card changed hands, but then remember Byfuglien got busted for boating while under the influence?
Yeah.
And then so that card went up on eBay around that time, and then it got called out on like Puck Daddy. They're like, oh, look at this card. It was drawn by Dustin Byfuglien, and it's like Byfuglien in his boat, and that must be his box wine right there, because there was just this random box that didn't make sense. So I was just like, oh man, now that card's like $100, and I would have given the guy like 25 for it. But anyways, so yes, those sketch cards were not just football, and yes, they were terrible. But as far as ITG Vault,
well,
or was that
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we're sticking to hockey products, is there a card worse? I don't know. Or is there a set worse? Look, in the game buybacks. For people that don't know, in 2016, that was pretty much the beginning of the end, if not the end of In the Game, before they combined with Leaf. And every box of this product was supposed to be set up to give you the most bang for your buck by them going out and buying back all of the products from all the releases that they had ever put out since the beginning of them producing cards. So all the game used memorabilia, all of the one-of-one, or all of the autographs, all of the, inserts and goalie mask cards and everything else that they bought back, they brought back into the product, and they stamped them all with one-of-one notations. And so all the print runs are different of the autographs, but they're all stamped. And so you get all these products. look, I understand the idea of it, because if you go back to that time, they were saying that, every portions of the proceeds for every box you buy goes to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Great. Love it. I don't know how much of the portions, but whatever. So anyway, so yeah, if you want a bunch of bought back products from previous year sets from the late 90s and early 2000s with weird stamps on them for no apparent reason, when you actually have the regular card that looks exactly the same but doesn't have the stamp, then have at it. The only thing I can put at the same level as that, maybe a close second, would be Upper Decks buybacks. Because I don't necessarily like those either. Reissuing non-autograph rookie cards with autos on them, I think, creates a lot of confusion in the market, especially with so many collectors, and I'm using air quotes, that like to try to capitalize on people's stupidity. So that may be entirely their own faults, as far as collectors being naive, but I'm not, and I'm not a fan of those. So that's that.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So here's another interesting question. This is from our buddy at A Census Blocker on Twitter. Fun Twitter account. If you're not following it, please do. Do you think other card manufacturers should have NHL rights, or is the market already saturated with product? So this is actually kind of like two separate questions, because one is not necessarily indicative of the other, or one is not really reliant on the other. So basically the two questions are, do you think that other card manufacturers should have NHL rights? And the other question is the market already saturated with product? Now, I don't think the market is saturated with product, because I go into any card shop, or I go into any like Target or Walmart, and they always have the least amount of hockey. Sometimes I see more, well, obviously I see more baseball, but sometimes I even see more like UFC stuff at like Target than I do at hockey stuff, hockey cards. So I don't feel like it's saturated with too much hockey product where it's just like clogging the aisles, or just sitting in like at the dealers' shelves or dealers' cases. At least, back in those like Panini days from like 2011, 2012, 2013, around there, I'd go in and I'd see like Prism marked down to like $11.99 a box because they just weren't selling them for 20 or whatever. I think the market has too many products that are similar to each other, and that's because Upper Deck is making all the products. And even though I like Upper Deck and I like the products that they make, I really don't have any real use for a lot of them because they're just so similar to each other. They don't do anything differently. You know what I mean? I like I like Upper Deck Series 1, Series 2. I like the bigger sets like O-Pee-Chee because I like lots of players. I'm still trying to put together a 16-17 compendium set, which has 900 cards. That'll be awesome when I finish that. About 58 cards away. But I think if there's competition, I feel like then there would be more different things out there, and then I would be more excited about collecting hockey cards, and then I feel like there would actually be some noticeable differences. And I think when you have differences in the product, then it doesn't feel saturated. Maybe the dealers will look and say, oh, I got too many, now I have to carry. Actually, one dealer said to me, oh, I love the Upper Deck Monopoly on hockey cards. I said, why? He goes, I only have to buy hockey from one company. He's like, I only have to buy baseball from one company. I only have to buy football from one company. I only have to buy basketball from one company. It's like, this makes it easier for me. I'm like, yeah, but as a buyer, I want to have some choices and I want to see some competition.
Yeah, and I agree. I think exclusivity breeds laziness when it comes to design, and you get the same stale recycled designs over and over again, and they make it tweaked a little bit from year to year for certain products. I like to see new stuff. That's why I was kind of excited when Allure came out this year, because it's a new product. It's never been on the market before, and I wanted to see what it's in. And it's kind of got elements of a lot of the things that were already out there. So it's really not anything that's like jumping out at you saying, I've never seen anything like this before.
Exactly. So let me ask you this.
Pieces of other things.
If we called Allure, if we put Contours on the box instead of Allure, would you be like, oh, this is the new Contour set?
No, it's different from Contours.
Okay.
But it's, I don't know. It just has, like I said, it has elements of synergy, elements of Contours, elements of what a Prism set would look like. Just, I don't know. It's, to me, it's not anything new. I like it, but it's not anything that's super new. And I've said it before. If Topps, even though Topps only has the digital license to do the Skate app, the insert cards and things that they come out with on Skate are absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And when you look at some of the insert sets that are on there and the way they do the memorabilia cards and autograph cards and things like that, even though it's digital, they're amazing. And if they could come out and make those into real cards, it would definitely push the creativity level a little bit higher.
Well, then Upper Deck would have to try a little harder and not just kind of regurgitate like.
Well, and it should be like that with any product, whether you collect hockey or whether you collect basketball or football or baseball or UFC or wrestling cards or any of that. I'm not saying everybody gets a license and everybody gets to make as many sets as they want. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can place limitations on the number of sets that manufacturers are able to make on a per year basis, based off of how many licenses that you're going to allow. So if we go back to the old days where, Panini's making cards, well, they weren't, but let's say they resurrect all the Pacific brands that they own, and they start making hockey cards in all of those brands again. And Topps gets their license back and starts making Topps and Bowman and whatnot, and Upper Deck still has theirs. You put limitations on how many each company can produce, and let's say, okay, you got a shot at, I don't know, 5 products each year or 8 products each year, and each one can put out. Yeah, that's a lot of products, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're looking across the board, it's going to create a lot of competition, and it's going to create, hey, we need to be better than our neighbor over here. So for every cup product that each year the cup is great and highly sought after and looks awesome, maybe there'll be something along the lines of National Treasures or something better.
Well, Panini had Panini had Dominion, and that
but Dominion kind of sucked. And the other, the cash grab at the end for Panini, what was the what did they call it? The one that had like all the patch cards that had no pictures of anybody on any of the cards.
Oh yeah,
and they were like full size. Maybe it was the anthology.
Yeah, Panini Anthology Hockey.
I was thinking Rookie Anthology. That's different.
Yeah, Panini Anthology Hockey is pull this up here.
It's full of that was dumb things.
That was the one where they couldn't picture the players because they still had it was a 15-16 product, and it was just autographs and patches. Just giant patches, autographs, and sticker autographs. I mean, he actually gave it a 0 out of 5. Actually, let's see. He has put here final score 0 out of 5, and he said, "Look, I'm not even going to rate this box because Sal probably won't let me put 4 out of 5 flaming paper bags of dog shit as a score." And then I put editor's note, true, but only because I'm too lazy to make a graphic of that. Hockey card fans, don't buy this product. I mean, you can, but try and get them for $25 and nowhere close to the laughable $125 Panini asked for.
Yeah. And you end up with stuff like that where it's just we're phoning it in at this point. And I get it. They didn't have their license at that point, and they had to get rid of a lot of what they had accumulated up to that point. I understand. But, obviously competition is going to breed creativity, and you're going to see that across the board in everything. So as much as I like the products that Upper Deck makes, would I like to see other stuff out there? Sure, of course I would.
I mean, look at like back to like the late 80s, early 90s, how competition raised the stakes, right? So when Topps started having competition in baseball cards with Fleer and Donruss, I'm forgetting one, uh, later upper, and Score later on, right? But then Top started doing their rookie and traded set, right? Because they wanted to have more cards, and they wanted, Donruss has a card of this guy, and Fleer got a card of this guy, and we didn't, so we want to have him in our set too. So then they would do a rookie and traded set, right? And then you look at the late 80s when Upper Deck came along, and they did the really nice photography on the cards, right? And then that pushed Topps to say, oh, okay, well, we're going to make Stadium Club, right? And that raised the bar, at least for Topps, maybe not to the same level that of what Upper Deck was doing, but that still raised the bar. And then you look at like Fleer Ultra came out, and they're like, we're going to do UV coating on both sides, and we're going to do gold foil stamping on all the cards, and we're going to do 3 pictures on every card. Or even Pinnacle, where they were like, we're doing 2 pictures on the front and 1 on the back, which was kind of a mess. But still, like, they looked for ways to outdo each other, and that was great. And it wasn't always successful. I mean, there were some stinkers out there, but we had this innovation, so it was exciting, and we don't have that anymore, right? Like the last Upper Deck set, I mean, I liked a lot of the Upper Deck sets that came out, but I mean, I just want to just throw out there was a set that came out a few years ago called Full Force. It was in 15-16, and I was so excited about that set because it just looked and sounded like it was going to be like this 90s homage, and it was just okay. Like, the design was okay. You could have put Fleer Ultra on it, and it would have been a Fleer Ultra set. I mean, honestly, you could have put Victory on it and got rid of the Full Force logo, which was too big anyway. You know what I mean? And it had like some wacky inserts. But
you didn't like those lenticular cards that had rookies on them?
I like those, yeah.
Or the thermal threats that looked like they were on fire.
No, I didn't like those, man. I grew up in the Cold War era. I remember the threat of a nuclear war, so I don't like looking at pictures of people that look like they're being incinerated in a nuclear blast.
Like everybody looked like Johnny Storm.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we said enough about that. Well, we got 2 gum-related questions, and we got a Panini question. Shall we do the Panini question first?
Sure.
Okay, this was also from Junk Wax Twins. Asked, is it possible that Panini will make instant cards of EBUGs, and how far is too far for 15 minutes of fame? So the first question is, will they make instant cards of EBUG? And the answer is no, because they don't have an NHL license. So then they would have to like get permission from the athlete, and then they would have to like airbrush out the logo, and then like nobody would care, right? Versus like a couple years ago when
Capo Caco.
Oh yeah, and well, they're too busy pimping his cards, right?
Which, by the way, they finally sold out of Select.
Oh, okay. Must have been that $25 off. How many packs did you end up buying?
I bought a whole none, I think,
None.
if I recall. Yeah, it must have been us promoting it on the show that got the rest of the people to buy it.
Yeah, the last 78 packs went to the 78 people who listened to last week's show. But so the thing is that like with an instant card of something sports related, it really helps to have a license for that sort of thing. So a couple years ago, when Eric Szymborski was the EBUG for the Chicago Blackhawks, Topps was able to make a card of him in their Topps skate app. They actually made 2 different cards. One was him skating around in the warm-up. One was him facing some shots in the warm-up. So one with a mask, one without a mask. And that was kind of cool. And then like when George Alves played with the Hurricanes, Upper Deck made like a special Young Gun card that was like sent to card shops in like North Carolina and South Carolina to like promote Upper Deck Hockey or whatever. I guess you had to make a purchase, and so I mean, and there's other examples of EBUGs getting cards, but I know like In the Game did one of Tom Fenton. He was in the 2010-11 Between the Pipes set, but I also made a Tom Fenton custom card on Puck Junk that you could download and print for free. I'll make sure to link to it. That I thought was pretty awesome because I wasn't selling it, so I could show him in a Coyotes jersey. Whereas with the In the Game set, they used a picture of him from college because they couldn't use a picture of him with an NHL jersey. But they're like, hey, we're making a card of this guy who was an EBUG for the Coyotes and sat on the bench. And I guess unless you get a picture of him in the jersey, like with the logo, is there really any desire for that card? And I'd say, nah, not really.
I mean, unless you're into that kind of thing and that's what you're looking for.
If you're a goalie collector.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the odd cards like that. So I mean, if they did make a card of I tried to get all the Gritty cards when those were coming out because it was like, Gritty, oh my God, this is hilarious. And he has a rookie card. Okay, he's a young gun card. Cool, right? And I like those odd cards. So I mean, I'm gonna go after it anyway. But as far as like how far is too far for 15 minutes of fame, I think giving the player like a one-off kind of card is fine, or maybe even just flipping them into the product next year, like Upper Deck did with Alves. They actually put him in 16-17 Compendium and 16-17 Fleer Showcase, which seems to be a bit much for a guy who played 7.6 seconds in a game and was really just there just to be the goalie that sits on the bench the whole game.
Yeah, but look how many cards Scott Foster got.
1 plus a bunch of variants of that same card.
Well, that counts. They could have not made the variants.
I mean, I guess, but it was just 1 card and then just copies of that card.
Look, everybody's calling for to be made into a young gun card.
Do it. Why not?
I understand, and that's fine if they want to do that. I think if they're going to do that, they shouldn't make it a normal young gun. They should make it like, I don't know, make it a young gun canvas. That way it's harder to find. No,
I disagree.
Because you want the card. That's why.
No, I think that, look, if you make
this guy's not got a chance of being a goalie in the National Hockey League. He doesn't.
No, but so he can't actually be in Series 2. Well, that's already out, or Final Update, because he's not a member of the Players Association. So this is the good old days when they could just put in whoever they felt like it.
And that's part of the other problem is he's not a player, so therefore he doesn't fall under the same licensing rules as the rest of their product.
Right.
So if they make an NHL set that's sponsored by the NHL and the NHLPA, I don't think he can be in it.
No, but somehow Alves was in the set, so in Fleer Showcase and Compendium, so I guess the Hurricanes were okay with that. No reason to see why they wouldn't be okay with this also.
I don't think it's the Hurricanes' call, is it? Because they didn't pay him.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think whenever there's anything fun like that, that's like offbeat, I think you should get a card. I'm not saying every single thing, because then that's pretty much game dated moments, and this would actually be a great game dated moment card.
Sure, I have no problem with that. Make them into a game dated Tops, jump on it, make them a Tops Now card.
Well,
and then we can move on with our life.
Yeah, okay, so we can move on with that question then.
That's what I say.
Okay, so Sean Brennan asked, what is the best way to get gum off of old cards? Do you guys have any tricks? And the answer is no, you don't. Let me explain some physics here. Paper is a porous material. It absorbs things. Like you've heard of paper towels, they absorb water, right? Cardstock is paper, it's porous. So what happens is when the gum gets pressed to the card for a long time, eventually some of the gum seeps into those pores of the card, and then it basically embeds into it. So I heard a trick of putting the card in the freezer. and I tried this because it was maybe like 10 years ago. I opened a bunch of old 87, 88 O-Pee-Chee hockey packs, and I got cards. Every card had a piece of gum, or every pack had one card with a piece of gum stuck to it. And I tried to get that gum off. I tried like just slipping in like a thin piece of paper to try to kind of wedge them apart, to kind of try to like just nudge them apart. And it would pull some of the card off with it. I tried putting it in the freezer because I heard if you let it freeze that it would actually, like, the gum would freeze and then just flake off of it. No, it kind of did, but it also took paper with it. So I have tried. Maybe you could try putting it over a pot of boiling water, and maybe that would like melt the gum a little bit. Like the steam would get in there. Maybe that would make the gum soft and just kind of fall off.
Yeah, but steam, water, paper, no, they don't go together.
No, I mean, that's not going to help the card anyway. So, I mean, the best card that I got with a piece of gum stuck to it was a Bill Ranford rookie card in the 87-88 O-Pee-Chee set. And I put that in a penny sleeve, and then I put it in a thick top loader, and that's just how I kept it. If I ever meet Bill Ranford, I'm going to ask him to sign it right on the gum.
Nice.
Because that'd be funny. But
I have 2 Brett Hull rookies, both with gum stains.
Well, those are stains, though. He's talking about, okay, so stains. Let's talk about stains.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
talking
stains
about...
don't come off because the oil from the gum and everything gets in there, and it stains the card forever.
What about wax stains?
Now, a wax stain, I've actually seen video of people take the wax off of cards. I don't know about the back side if there's not a finish to it, but I know on the front side, I've seen people take the wax off with pantyhose, if you can believe that.
I believe it.
But I don't know how it would work on the paper part of the back of the cards. But on the front, it seemed to work. But gum, like the gum stains, no. Because that's just like you said, that's in there. It's buried in the card. Yeah. So unless you can talk to somebody at PWCC, they'll probably know how to tell you how to get it off.
Yeah, right. How we made this feels like it needs to be like a late night infomercial. How we made this PSA 4 card into a PSA 10 card.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the before and the after.
Don't ask me, ask the experts. I don't know how to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's another reason not to really want to buy old trading cards. Like, especially if like one card is just going to get damaged by gum and one card's going to get damaged by wax. Already, if it's a 10 card pack, you're already losing 2 cards right there.
Well, I think the allure is always, hey, if I buy a box of 79.80, what are my odds of hitting a Gretzky out of there? What are the odds of it being stained with gum?
Yeah, that's a serious question, right? Because, I mean, you might, if you buy a full box, let's say you buy a full box and you could get potentially 3 to 4 Gretzkys, but then you figure there's like, let's say just tops, right? So maybe that would be 2 to 3 Gretzkys because that was 264 cards that year. But then you figure there's 36 packs in a box, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's possible. And that sucks. So, I don't know. Sometimes it's just better
for making bank on a card.
I know, you just buy the card that you want. And even making bank on a card, you're taking a huge risk. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But then you still got to grade it. I mean, there's just so much to it.
Just call PWCC. They'll take care of it for you.
Wow. Hey, PWCC does not sponsor the show. Please do not. Please do not.
Don't at me.
Don't at me, bro. Do not mistake Tim's strained attempt at comedy as seriousness. It was not. But actually, great question to end the show. So, great username, by the way. Yari the Hut at Curry Yari asks, should I try the gum in the 82-83 O-Pee-Chee cards I bought today? And I'm going to say no. I tried that gum when I bought that 87-88 pack, or 4 packs, and I tried the gum. Let me tell you what Old O-Pee-Chee gum tastes like. It tastes like wet sand. It's disgusting.
How do you know what wet sand tastes like?
I can imagine what wet sand tastes like, right? We've all had a little bit of...
So it tastes like what you imagine wet sand would taste like.
Well, when you put sand in your mouth, it's wet.
I don't routinely do that, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, what I'm saying is maybe it's not sand. Maybe wet sawdust is a better...
even better.
So here's the thing about the O-Pee-Chee gum. So I busted these packs about 10 years ago. So they would have been like around 20 years old, let's just say. Maybe a little older, a little young. I don't know. They were somewhere around there. They're on YouTube. I'll put a link to the video where I actually eat the gum. It was not a good decision. Not one of my better decisions. You put a stick of gum in your mouth and you chew it, and that gum becomes this like collective, cohesive lump that you chew on, right? Chewing gum.
Not
that
baseball card gum.
Well, the old baseball card gum used to, kind of. It would kind of fracture, but you'd bite into it and it'd kind of fracture into pieces. But then you'd eventually chew it and then it would just kind of mush together. The O-Pee-Chee gum never did that. The old O-Pee-Chee gum never did that. Now, I remember eating O-Pee-Chee gum in 89, 90, and 90, 91 and just being like, oh yeah, this gum is not as good as the Topps gum. It's because they didn't put a ton of sugar in it. Like, it had less sugar. The Topps gum had that nice coating of sugar on both sides. You'd slide it out of the pack. There'd be that little bit of sugar that was left on the top of the card, and you'd get the sugar on your fingers, and you're able to kind of bend it in half, depending on how fresh the gum was, and it just had a lot of sugar on it and a lot of sugar in it. The O-Pee-Chee gum didn't have as much sugar, hence it's sticking to the old cards more frequently. But then also, when I tried eating it, it never coagulated into a whole. It was like having all these little bits of separate things in my mouth that wouldn't lump together, and it tasted awful. And then when I tried to spit it out, it didn't spit out as one piece like spitting out gum. It was like trying to spit out a mouthful of sand, where I was just like, pah, 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 pah. Oh God, I can't believe I did this. Pah, 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 and gargling and just trying to get it all out. It was a horrible experience.
Well, based on all of that, I'm taking counterpoint on this, and I'm saying, yes, by all means, eat that gum and videotape it and share it with all of us.
And add us on that too.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so I think that was a good first mailbag. The Puck Junk Listener Mailbag, the first one. Thank you for everyone who submitted a question. Oh, by the way, I'm thinking back about that Facebook group. I'm thinking about starting a Puck Junk Facebook group. I have a Puck Junk Facebook page, but it's not really active. So I'm thinking about starting a group, maybe for trading or maybe for just talking about cards and stuff.
That's not a bad idea. Put a little social media elbow grease to work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see other groups do that, and I think it'd be fun because I see other groups. I'm part of like a couple of different groups on Facebook. One about G.I. Joe collectors who like more just to talk about G.I. Joe than actually do any buying and trading. It's just more about talking about G.I. Joe. And another one like a He-Man group that I follow, and another one for like video game artwork, and I think it's just fun to share that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about starting like a Puck Junk group because I don't know, I think it'd be fun to do. We like to talk about cards, we like to talk about culture, collectibles, all of those hockey things, and I think that'd be fun. So maybe look for an announcement on that coming soon.
And definitely, if you've got more questions for us, keep them coming.
Yeah,
hit us up on Twitter.
I love these questions. These are great.
We've got a few more, and we're going to address on future episodes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, until next time, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe, and peace out.
Peace out.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.